This is one of the worst D-pads I've ever used in my life. This is one of the best D-pads I've ever used in my life. So a few weeks ago I bought a Hori Fighting Commander Octa, and it has become my new favorite controller for fighting games. And before buying this controller I saw some reviews for it, and most of them were okay. They weren't terrible, but they didn't go into too much detail either. Most of them yapped for way too long, and any gameplay they showed, if they had gameplay, was lackluster to say the least. So here's my succinct review. So starting with the price, I bought this for about $50 US, and for $50 dues, I'm pretty happy with what I got. On the front of the controller there are 6 micro switch buttons, and they're kinda clicky. I like the sound. And the 6 button configuration is very good if you hold your controller in a claw style. Having 2 extra buttons on the front is very nice. And on the shoulders there are 4 membrane buttons, not triggers, which is good for fighting games because buttons are definitely more responsive than triggers. And the shoulder buttons are kinda loud. Definitely louder than the micro switch buttons, but that doesn't really bother me. And all the buttons are responsive and feel good to press, and that's what's important. And over here on the left is where the controller gets its Octa name. It is a short throw analog stick with an octagonal gate, kind of like a GameCube controller. The stick works good, and the octagonal gate definitely makes it better than most other analog sticks for fighting games. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't use the analog stick on a pad for fighting games, and people who do are psychos and need to be put on the watch list. And if someone does like to use the analog stick, they might not like where it's positioned on the controller. So for example, I find it more comfortable to have my thumb up here instead of down here. So really though, it's just a personal preference on ergonomics. And up here, the cable is wired with a 10-foot long or 3-meter long wired cable. There's no input lag. I push button, input comes out instantly. On the bottom there's a 3.5mm headphone jack, and on the front there are 3 LED lights. The left is to mute your mic if you have your headphones plugged into your controller, and the right turns on if you're using custom settings, like adjusting your D-pad sensitivity. Now, you can change your settings by holding down the button, waiting for it to blink, but personally I wouldn't recommend using that. It is kinda jank and very finicky. It is much better and more accurate to use the Hori device manager instead of the controller. I'll go into more detail about the device manager in a second. The middle light is related to the lock switch that is located on the back of the controller. Here on the top there are 3 settings. If you set it to the middle, it will lock the touchpad on the front of the controller. If you flip it all the way to the right, it will lock the start and the select button. This is good when you're playing locals or in tournaments, so you don't accidentally pause the game. And the bottom switch on the back is PS5, PS4, PC, which is pretty obvious what it does. You play on PC, switch to PC. Play on PS5, switch to PS5. Now one thing I love about this controller is the shape of it. It's like it was tailor-made for me. Now how I hold a controller is I use my middle fingers here on the back to hold up the pad, my fingers out, my thumbs right here. And this controller is also incredibly lightweight, much lighter than any other controller I've ever really used. So using this controller is a very comfortable experience. And for me, comfort is king. Now that doesn't mean this controller's body is perfect. There could be some improvements. For instance, the handles on this controller, they work, but they could be more comfortable. Like notice here how it curves kind of downwards or inwards. And if you compare this to an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller, where it curves outwards, this is definitely more comfortable to hold when you're holding it down at the handles. So the ergonomics could be a little better. And if you're watching this video, you are most likely a fighting game player. What that means is that you are a sweaty, greasy, and oily individual. So if you've been playing games for a while, or the temperature goes up, and your hands start sweating, this controller will get slippery. Because the back of this controller is completely smooth plastic. There is no texture or anything to help you with grip. And those were the only problems I had with this controller. And now we go to the final thing that makes or breaks this controller for a lot of people, and that's the D-pad. Now I really like this D-pad, but when I first tried it I thought it was okay, then I thought it was absolute garbage, and now I love it. But real quick, let me show you how I use the D-pad. I do not use the end of my thumb for movement on this D-pad. What I do is I take my interphalangeal joint and stick it right in the center of the D-pad. The D-pad has an indentation in the middle of it, a nice dish shape that the middle of my thumb sits comfortably in. And for the way I hold the D-pad, it's very nice, works very well. And the D-pad is a membrane, so right out of the box, it's very stiff. But after a couple hours of breaking in the D-pad, it stopped being so stiff and is now very comfortable to use. And after all that, this D-pad is still trash. And I know it's weird to hear after what I've been saying, but after I started playing games, I started getting crazy misinputs, and that's bad. So I started wondering, why is my D-pad so jank? And I found out that the default settings on the Fighting Commander is absolute garbage. On the Octa, I do not like the default button bindings. And worst of all, the D-pad sensitivity is maxed out in all 8 directions, so the slightest touch will give you misinput, and that's really annoying. But there is something that saves this controller from being something subpar that I would not recommend to anybody to be an absolute 10 out of 10, and that is the Hori Device Manager app. First, real quick, let me show how to download the Hori Device Manager app. Let me just pull up this incognito tab real quick, because there's only 3 things in this world that should know my search history: me, God, and the FBI agent spying on me. So this is what the store looks like. Just scroll down, download the Hori Device Manager app, and install it. And once installed, it should look something like this. Now here on the screen, if you look underneath the controller, you'll notice that it says PC mode. If I flip the switch on the back of the controller, it goes from PC mode to PS4 mode. Takes a second for it to load. And then PS5 mode. Now each individual mode has their own unique settings, and they do not transfer over to one another. So if you change the settings on PC mode, nothing will change on the PS5 or PS4 mode. So if playing on multiple platforms, make sure to change the settings for each individual mode. Now up here at the top, each individual mode has 4 separate profiles you can switch to. When you click on a profile, 3 settings will pop up: switch and edit, change name, and revert to defaults. Now the most recent profile you switch to is the one the controller will use when you boot up a game. So now I'm going to pick one of the profiles. I'll switch to Goonmeister. Now on the left, click on D-pad settings, and you can't change the sensitivity until you turn off balanced input mode. There are 6 different sensitivity levels for each direction, and when you switch it to the lowest setting, it requires quite a bit of force to make the D-pad register an input. But yeah, this is pretty good. So if you have trouble hitting diagonals, leave the diagonals at max setting and then turn down the cardinal directions. Keep hitting diagonals by accident, just turn them down. So just keep messing with the settings until you find what's perfect. And what's perfect for me are these settings. These are what I use. So once you find your D-pad settings, go back and go to the button mapping. Now here with the left analog stick, you can turn off the stick press button. And what this does is that if you click in the left thumbstick, nothing will register. Pretty handy if you're using the analog stick and you don't want to have a misinput. And I didn't see any way to turn off the analog stick for movement. And for each button, each input can be either turned off or changed to any other input. And the most interesting input that each button can be mapped to, if you might have noticed, are the 4 cardinal directions. You can do some interesting stuff with this. So I booted up Street Fighter 4. If you notice, I'm holding down on the D-pad, and when I push the shoulder button, up is registered, without letting go of the D-pad. So you can do some interesting frame-perfect things with charge characters. Now I don't really use this because I'm pretty sure this isn't tournament legal, but you can do this. You can also move using nothing but the shoulder buttons. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can. You can also bind every button to do the same input. Once again, you can, but why? Anyways, this is the mapping I use. This is what I find most comfortable. So once I got the controller set up just right, it's perfect. My new favorite fight pad. But there's just one annoying thing about the D-pad. So let me show you real quick. It basically involves just one technique. So here on an Xbox or a PlayStation pad, when I put my thumb on one end of the D-pad and slide it over to the opposite end, it will hit right, neutral, and left in one smooth motion. Now it's a little more annoying to do this with a Fighting Commander, because with the way it's designed, it just eats the neutral input. It's still holding down. So what I do to have the neutral input register is I have to press right, and when I move to the middle, I have to very slightly lift my thumb up so the neutral gets registered. Then I hit left. So this isn't an issue when you have to do it slowly. It's when you have to do it really fast is when it gets kind of annoying. So I know what you're thinking. So, exactly. This is useless to 99.9% of all people on this planet, but it's not to me. So let me show you one move that becomes more annoying to do. So we got Brian Fury. As you can see, jet uppers, no problem, come out very smoothly. It's when you gotta do it fast, like taunt jet upper fast, that it becomes annoying to do. And as you can see, sliding my thumb just isn't working for me. I have to do the thumb off neutral technique, and I'll do it 3 times in a row, just to demonstrate. Alright, I'll slide my thumb next. Miss input, thumb off, it lands. Miss input, thumb off again, and it lands. So you can see, a little more annoying to do. So yeah, it's just a really minor thing. It makes taunt jet uppers go from something that's kinda easy to do to kind of annoying. And well, I'm not even a Bryant main, so I don't even use taunt jet uppers in matches. I usually just go for back 4 or other guaranteed things because I can land those much more consistently. And backdash canceling doesn't feel too different from other D-pads, both on 2P and 1P side. Alright, switched over to Kazooie. And what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, so movement and inputs with the left D-pad feel just as good as any other D-pad I've used. Everything is still consistent, things like dash blocking, backdash canceling, fuzzy guarding. It's all really the same. And of course, getting this controller isn't going to magically make you better at execution. You still have to get good with it. So the only problem I had with the D-pad was it eating a neutral input when sliding your thumb from one end to the other. That's the only thing I thought was worse compared to other D-pads. And that's just a minor thing. But everything else still works perfectly fine, even things like forward, neutral, down forward. So moves like Heihachi's Omen Fist, Huarang's Just Frame Skyrocket, and Perfect Electrics. Now what I'm saying would have more weight to it if I could actually land a Perfect Electric. Now I haven't done or even thought of doing a Perfect Electric in like 6 months, but it still shouldn't be giving me this much trouble. Oh my god, I'm gonna stop talking, I need to lock in. There we go. How embarrassing, I can't believe it took me over a minute to do just one Perfect Electric. Damn. Now there is one thing I find this D-pad to do much better than any other controller, and that's circle inputs. Half circle, quarter circle, full circle motions just feel very comfortable on this D-pad. It just feels really good to roll my thumb over it. And wave dashing feels really good on this pad too. Normally I would get hand fatigue or my thumb would start to get a little sore, but with this controller, I can do it for hours without feeling anything. It's pretty great. It's definitely the best pad I've used for wave dashing. It just feels really good. Alright, let me try to wave dash as an instant while running. That was pretty easy. I missed the blue spark though. So yeah, circle motions feel really good on this controller. Getting frame perfect blue spark giant swings is very easy. Zangief's throws when I tried it on Street Fighter, easy. It just feels really good. Not much else for me to say. It's great. And those are my thoughts on the Fighting Commander Octa. It's definitely my new favorite fight pad. I like it a lot. And the rest of the video is just me doing character combos, showing the controller off a little bit more. I'm going to start with Lily, since Chikarin won Evo with her in this fight pad. But something's wrong with the costume, let me change it real quick. Yes, I'm a real Lily main now. Alright, now that I'm a real Lily main, let's do, I think it's called Do Glide Cancels? Wait, how'd you do the combo again? Oh yeah. Voila. That's pretty easy. Sure, from 2P side. That felt pretty easy to do. Let's try Lei Chabla. He's pretty execution heavy. Damn, missed an input there. Let's do it again. There we go. Excellent. Very nice. And jack feels incredible on this pad. So in other words, it feels so good to jack it with this controller. Getting blue sparks is very easy. What was this combo again? Oh yeah, double down forward. There we go. Again, blue spark ones, just, I never miss it. It's very easy to do. But yeah, not much else to say. It just feels really good to jack off with this controller. So good, very nice. I went back to Byron, use combos with him. What was Dragunov's combo again? Oh yeah. Hopefully I can land this axe kick. That was really easy to do. Oh, before I forget, yeah, electrics feel really good to do. Pretty easy. Well, for a pad anyways. Let's do the just frame for Horog. If I can land it, do the twirl. There you go. Yeah, I don't know any Horang combos. Now to try some butterfly combos. Oh, whoops, miss input. Let's try it again. And booted up Street Fighter 4, try out some Zangief. And his command throw was very easy to do with this controller. Well, let's try a super, which is 2 circles. That was really easy to do. Man, this controller feels good. I think it's better for Street Fighter than Tekken, honestly. And since I booted up Street Fighter 4, I decided to try out my boy for a day. It makes me so upset that they never brought him back or Adon back. Those two were my mains back in Street Fighter 4. Also booted up King of Fighters real quick, and I think this controller works really well. Yeah, this controller works great for every fighting game I've tried it for. There's just one thing I need to test real quick to see if it's really perfect for me. Now that's good. Anyways, this is my new favorite fight pad. I like it a lot. I would be really happy if this thing lasts me at least a year or two, because compared to leverless and stick, pads aren't super durable. But I think it'll hold up. It feels pretty good quality for 50 bucks. And I highly recommend this controller. And the best part is that if you don't like it, you can always return it pretty easily. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.